The air was thick with summer heat when Michael Harrison, one of New York's most respected businessmen, stepped out of his sleek black car in front of a crumbling apartment building on the outskirts of Brooklyn. The contrast was almost absurd. His tailored suit, polished shoes, and the faint scent of expensive cologne clashed violently against the peeling paint, the rusted mailboxes, and the faint cries of children echoing from inside. He didn't know what had brought him there. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something deeper, something he didn't yet understand. When the door finally opened, Lucia stood there, her hair hastily tied back, a baby in her arms and exhaustion carved into her face. Her eyes widened with disbelief. "Mr. Harrison, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling somewhere between fear and shame. Behind her, through the narrow crack of the door, he caught a glimpse of a small living room overcrowded with children. Toys scattered across the floor, furniture falling apart, and the faint smell of mold and boiled rice. For a man used to glass towers and marble floors, it was like stepping into another world, one built entirely on sacrifice. And in that moment, Michael felt something shift inside him. He had come there without warning, but what he was about to discover would change him forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people who still step up when the world turns away, take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to see will restore your faith in humanity. Now, let's begin. Michael Harrison had built his entire life on precision, on control, discipline, and the certainty that every outcome could be shaped with the right decision. He was the kind of man people looked up to, the sharp suits, the quiet authority, the reputation that came with building an empire from nothing. But that summer afternoon, none of that mattered. After leaving a board meeting early, he found himself driving aimlessly through the streets of Brooklyn, following an address scribbled on a small piece of paper. It was the address of one of his housekeepers, Lucia Alvarez. He had never done something like that before. Michael wasn't a man who crossed professional boundaries or entertained curiosity about his employees' private lives. But Lucia had always been different. She moved quietly through his home, efficient, polite, always on time, yet there was something about her silence that lingered long after she left each day. It wasn't pity that drew him there. It was an unease. A sense that behind her calm eyes and soft smile, there was a story that no one had ever asked to hear. When he arrived, the building looked abandoned from the outside, the kind of place where hope went to die slowly. The paint peeled like old skin, the hallway lights flickered, and the smell of damp wood and poverty hung in the air. For a moment, he almost turned back. But something told him to stay. He climbed the narrow staircase, each step creaking under his weight. His reflection in the cracked glass of a door startled him, a man too clean, too perfect, out of place in this world. He knocked. The door opened a few seconds later, and Lucia stood before him, her face pale with surprise. "Mr. Harrison," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "What are you doing here?" Her hair was tied back loosely, strands falling over her face. She wore a faded t-shirt and jeans, and there was a baby in her arms, barely a year old. Behind her, the sound of children's laughter and crying filled the tiny apartment. Michael hesitated. "I just wanted to stop by," he said awkwardly. "You weren't at work today, and I wanted to make sure you were all right." Her eyes widened, not with gratitude, but with worry. "I'm fine, sir," she said quickly, trying to block the view inside with her body. "You shouldn't have come all the way here." But Michael had already seen enough. Over her shoulder, he saw 4 children, the oldest maybe 12, the youngest barely walking. They sat on an old sofa, springs poking through the fabric, eating cereal from plastic cups. It wasn't the poverty that shocked him. It was the dignity in the middle of it, the way everything was clean, carefully arranged, as if she had tried to make beauty out of scarcity. "Lucia," he said softly, "are these your children?" She nodded, clutching the baby closer to her chest. "Yes, sir. All of them." The silence that followed was heavy, almost unbearable. He had seen deals collapse worth millions. He had seen men break under the pressure of numbers and ambition. But he had never seen a woman stand so firmly beneath a mountain she carried alone. "I didn't know you had children," he finally said. "I don't talk about them at work," she replied quietly. "People don't need to know." Her voice held no bitterness, only exhaustion, the kind that seeps into the bones. One of the children, a little boy with dark curls, tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, I'm hungry." Lucia stroked his hair gently. "In a minute, Carino. Just a minute more." Michael looked away, guilt pressing down on him. He felt like an intruder, a man trespassing in someone else's pain. "I didn't come to judge," he said softly. "I just wanted to understand." Lucia's shoulders tensed. Her lips trembled. "Understand what, Mr. Harrison? That I clean houses because I have to feed 5 mouths? That I come home so tired I can barely stand? That some nights, I go to sleep hungry so my kids can eat?" Her words hit him like stones. There was no anger in them, just truth. "I've worked since I was 16, she continued, her eyes burning with unshed tears. "Back then, I promised myself my children would never live the way I did. But life doesn't always keep its promises." Michael said nothing. His throat was tight. He glanced around the room again, the cracked tiles, the water stains on the ceiling, the broken heater in the corner. And yet, there was warmth there. The laughter of children who had learned to play with almost nothing. Lucia noticed his silence and mistook it for pity. "Don't," she said firmly. "Please don't feel sorry for me. I don't want that." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were fierce. "I work because I have to. Not because I want anyone's charity." Michael nodded slowly. "I know. And I respect that." Her expression softened, just a little. Then the oldest child, a girl of about 12, stepped forward. "My mom's the strongest person in the world," she said proudly. "She never gives up." That single sentence pierced him more deeply than he could explain. Michael turned away, his chest tightening. Something in him cracked, something he had sealed away long ago. He remembered his own mother, the woman who had raised him alone after his father walked out. The sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the tears she had hidden from him. He remembered her hands, cracked from cleaning other people's homes. He had buried those memories under layers of success, but now they came rushing back, unstoppable. Lucia noticed the change in his eyes. "You don't have to stay," she said quietly. "I know this isn't your world." Michael took a deep breath. "It used to be." She frowned, not understanding. "When I was a boy," he said, "my mother was just like you. She cleaned houses. She skipped meals so I could eat. I swore I'd change our lives, and I did. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what it cost her." Lucia looked at him for a long moment, and then, for the first time, she smiled faintly. It wasn't a smile of joy, but of recognition. Two lives on opposite sides of fortune, yet bound by the same invisible thread. She turned back to her children, and her voice lowered. "You don't know the half of it, Mr. Harrison," she whispered. What you see here is only the surface. Michael waited. There were nights, she said, staring at the floor, when I had nothing left. When I went out into the streets to sell whatever I could, old clothes, jewelry, sometimes even the food from our own kitchen. I begged for help more times than I can count. And every time someone looked at me with disgust, I swore I'd never let my children see me like that again. Her voice broke. But sometimes, pride doesn't feed a family. Michael's heart clenched. He wanted to speak, but words felt too small. You've done what you had to, he said finally. And that makes you stronger than most people I know. Lucia shook her head. No, it just makes me a mother. There was no self-pity in her tone, only truth. The baby began to cry softly, and she rocked him gently in her arms. The sound filled the silence like a prayer. Michael felt his own eyes sting. You don't deserve this life, he whispered. None of you do. Lucia looked up sharply. Don't make promises you can't keep, Mr. Harrison. My children have heard enough of those. He met her gaze, and for once, the confident businessman disappeared. What replaced him was a man stripped of armor, raw, human, sincere. I'm not making promises, he said quietly. I'm making decisions. Lucia blinked, unsure if she had heard right. I can't erase your past, he continued, but I can change your present, and your children's future. She stared at him, tears spilling down her cheeks. Why would you do that for us? Because someone once did it for my mother, he said. Because I know what it's like to be hungry. And because wealth means nothing if it doesn't lift others up. For a moment, neither of them moved. The children stood frozen, sensing something important was happening. Then, the smallest boy, the one with the curls, walked up to Michael and handed him a toy car with a missing wheel. It's broken, the boy said shyly. But you can have it. Michael took the toy in his hand, feeling an unexpected lump rise in his throat. Thank you, he said softly. It's perfect. Lucia covered her mouth, holding back sobs. The room seemed to glow with something that had been missing for too long, hope. That night, Michael stayed longer than he planned. He talked with the children, listened to their stories, and helped fix a broken leg on the dining table using a screwdriver he found in a drawer. Before he left, he turned to Lucia. Tomorrow, he said, I'll send someone to help fix this place. And I'll arrange scholarships for your children. I'll also offer you a full-time position managing household staff for one of my properties. Better pay, benefits, stability. Lucia's eyes widened. Please, don't feel you have to. He interrupted gently. This isn't charity, Lucia. It's fairness. You've earned this 100 times over. Tears streamed freely down her face. She nodded, unable to speak. When Michael finally stepped out into the warm night, the city felt different, softer somehow. He looked up at the sky, remembering his mother again, and whispered, "Thank you." Over the following months, everything changed. The apartment was repaired. The children started school with new clothes and backpacks. Lucia began working at one of Michael's foundations, coordinating community projects. She proved so capable that within a year, she was managing an entire team. But the real transformation wasn't material, it was emotional. Lucia walked taller now. Her eyes, once heavy with exhaustion, carried a quiet strength. The children laughed more, dreamed bigger. And Michael, the man who once thought success was measured in numbers, learned that the greatest investment was in human dignity. He visited often. Sometimes to drop off books for the kids. Sometimes just to share dinner. The youngest always ran to him first, toy car still missing its wheel. One evening, as they all sat around the small kitchen table, Lucia looked at him and said, "You know, Mr. Harrison, that day you came unannounced. I thought my world was ending." He smiled. "Turns out, it was just beginning." She laughed softly. "Maybe you were sent here for a reason." "Maybe," he said, his eyes warm. "Or maybe I just finally started listening to the part of me that still remembers what matters." There was a silence, the good kind. The kind that fills a room with gratitude. Later that night, as Michael drove home through the quiet streets, he realized that his life, the deals, the wealth, the endless chase for more, had all been leading him to that one moment in front of Lucia's door. He had gone there thinking he would offer help. But he left with something far greater. He left with the reminder that the real measure of a man isn't in what he owns, but in what he gives. True wealth isn't found in bank accounts, but in compassion. Every act of kindness has the power to rebuild not just lives, but hearts. And sometimes, the people we think we're helping are the ones who end up saving us. Because behind every quiet struggle, there's a story waiting to remind us what humanity really means. Which part of this story touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, so you won't miss any of our next emotional stories.